All right, I think we're live here. Welcome to what I think will be episode 38 of the Card Diary by Hobby S. Thompson. I'm your host, Denny Cards, the self proclaimed jack of all trades, master of none, maybe even uncle or funkle in the hobby. And as I like to paraphrase Jay Z, you could be listening to any podcast in the world, but you're here with me, and thank you so much for doing so. However, you are not here just with me today. I have a very special guest for this continuing mini series of Meet the Grader within my podcast, where I'm just trying to learn more about the grading space and the companies and the people around it. Again, just trying to humanize different positions and aspects of the grading companies. So today, I am so pleased to say that I have a grader from CGC. Her name is Sophia, who I might add has a very impressive social media presence with more than triple my follower count, and she is just such a great content machine herself. She has been a grader for CGC for about 2 years. Her favorite Pokemons are Dragonite and Mimikyu, and she told me right before I pressed record that her shirt, for those of you who are listening only on audio, is of Mimikyu. She even showed me a tattoo, which is of Mimikyu. Amazing. So, let me just throw it to you. Welcome to the pod, Sophia. Thank you for
Thank you
having.
so
Yeah.
much. Thank you. I'm so excited. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy. I was kind of going through these pre-recording questions just to see what we can talk about. And as soon as so Jesse from Sports Card Nonsense, shout out to him. He was a guest on my podcast, and he's big into Pokemon. And he and I have talked about, I think we're buddies on Pokemon Go now, and we're like sending each other gifts. Well, by the way, do you play Pokemon Go?
Yes, I do. I love
All
Pokemon Go.
right, we're gonna have to become friends on that. But
Yes.
so one of the questions I had for him was like, what are the sports athlete analogs to certain Pokemon? So we're talking about like, Charizard and, the Michael Jordan of Pokemon is Charizard. So when you told me your favorite Pokemon were Dragonite and Mimikyu, I was like, all right, who are the athlete analogs, comparison points to that? And you had like this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know much about sports. The only sports player that I know about is Steph Curry because I actually grew up in Davidson where he went to college and played basketball. So I used to go watch his basketball games when I was in high school with my friends. Um, and so I like knew him a little bit before, and then when I was abroad one day, I like saw him on TV, and I was like, "Why is Steph Curry on TV?" And my mind was just blown, and I was like, "Wow, he's actually famous now." And now he's like one of the most famous people in the whole world. And I
Yes.
remember when he was just a little basketball player for Davidson College. So
Oh my goodness, yeah. His nickname in early on was like the baby faced assassin, and like you saw him and he looks so young. His rookie card. He looks
young.
yeah. So did you play Pokemon with him?
I wish. But I do
Oh
have a
my
picture
god.
with him from when I was 16 and he was in college and we both look so young.
Oh my goodness, that is so awesome. So so yeah, like you grew up in that area.
Hmm.
Can you remind me? So what city or town state is Davidson in?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, man, just w- I I don't want to deviate too far, but I have so many questions. Maybe I'll just ask you offline. But that's so awesome that you grew up and you saw him when you were like in high school and he was in college and you
Yeah,
grew up in that area. Like just what a magical run he had and
it was
just
amazing.
kind of like going into the NBA. Okay, I got to stop talking about this. We are here to talk about you as a grader, the grading space.
Mhm.
Um, so far, I had a grader from FCG, Forensic Card Grading. That was a great interview. Shout out. Thank you so much to Craig. And then I had a president of a grading company, Eddie. Thank you to Eddie. So today I have you on, and I just wanted people to get to know you, because I feel like there's a lot of people who there's a lot of myth, a lot of kind of like uncertainty or unknowns about the grading space and who the graders are, and you know, do they when if they have a bad day, am I going to get bad grades on my card? So maybe the first question I'll ask you, and then I'll get to kind of like who you are, what you do, and everything about that is, can you please help dispel the myth or or confirm it? Does having a bad day in your personal life, does that affect your grading on a daily basis?
So this is a great question. As you know, we're all human beings, and human beings go through range of emotions, good days, bad days. But I think here, because we have such a strong team, we work together so well. You know, if someone is struggling with something, it's okay to go outside and like take 10 minutes and regroup, refocus, and get back to work. Also, because we love what we do, like it's fun. We come to work every day and enjoy Pokemon and TCG and things like that. So when you're passionate about what you do, it's like I find it harder for me personally to have a bad day, as well as the fact that we're so like focused on each card that we're grading. So I know I get into the zone and I don't really think about anything else when I'm grading, because we have to pay such close attention to the details of like what we're doing and what we're looking at, which is a good way to like not really think about anything else. So of course, you know, we have emotions, but we kind of like leave that at the door and just come to work and focus on what we're doing. And because it's amazing and fun, it's kind of easy to have good days, I guess.
That's awesome. So again, just you heard it from a grader directly. You know, she's a consummate professional, and I think I remember. I mean, not I remember, but when I'm at work and I'm in the zone, like yeah, I may have a really bad day with something going on
Mhm.
back in the home front, but you just focus on the work. So,
Yeah.
and it seems like it is like the hobby is escapism, but work can also be escapism for people who you just focus on what's right in front of you, the task at hand. And
Yeah,
so hope
exactly.
listeners, that's two graders in a row who said, I'm a professional. We are human. We have emotions, but you put them at the door and you get to work. So I think that's really awesome. That's a great answer. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
So you're human again. I'm trying to humanize the grader. Could you kind of tell me and the listeners kind of like how what's your collecting hobby journey look like? And I know you don't collect sports cards, but just from
Mhm.
the TCG side of things, could you kind of tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, so I actually started collecting Pokemon cards when I was just a little kid. I remember I would like save up all my allowance money and go to Target and buy a pack of cards. And I was always super excited. And so I kept a binder and I would collect over the years, like base set, jungle, fossil, E series. And I always made sure my binder was like very safe. And I remember in elementary school, we were like, oh, we're so rebellious because we would go to the hallways and like trade Pokemon cards with the other kids. And it was always so fun. And I played with my cards so much as well. But I always made sure I knew where my binder was at all times. Like even when I went off to college, I was like, Mom, make sure like my binder is safe. Like make sure nobody touches my Pokemon card binder. And so yeah, like I just always loved it. And then when I actually got back into collecting was in 2016 when Evolutions came out, because I saw the artwork and I was like, oh my gosh, this literally looks like how they looked when I was a kid. And so it got me super excited. And I know a lot of people, came back when they saw like this nostalgia of Evolutions come out. And that's when I actually learned how to play the game. I started going to tournaments. And honestly, ever since then, like I've become like a hardcore Pokemon collector. I started going to conventions, like pre-release tournaments. I got to meet Mitsuhiro Arita at a convention in London, which was amazing. And it became like my biggest hobby. And then the fact that then I was able to turn that into a job was just incredible. Like I never thought I would ever be able to do that. And I just love Pokemon with my entire heart and soul. And it's such a joy to get to work with cards every single day. And also not just Pokemon, but like I've learned so much about other games. Like I have even like a small Magic collection because of the artwork. And I've learned recently, like I've learned how to play Lorcana, which has just come out. And like I have Digimon cards. And so it's been cool to explore lots of different TCGs through working here and learning so much. So it's been such an amazing journey. And like my Instagram that I created, so I've met this whole community of people who are incredible, who've like changed my life. I've met some of my best friends through Pokemon. It's just been such an incredible journey. So Yeah.
I can't wait for my kids to listen to this interview and just kind of like see the joy that I mean, they're kids and they have the joy now, but like, just to see it in you. And I mean, your social media, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, the follower count is just a number. That's what I say too. It's just a number. But when it comes to building community and engagement, and like you certainly do a lot of that. And some of your shots, I've seen let's plug that here and I'll put it in the show notes, but really impressive artistic photographic shots, and I'm just like, wow, I'm blown away at your creativity. Sometimes I feel like the Pokemon community may have some arguably better content creators, just because maybe it is more artistic, because it is art. So when I see the content in the TCG space, I am very impressed on Instagram. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, I actually, and I studied art and photography specifically in college. And I actually used to do a lot of photography. And so that's one of the main reasons that I started my Instagram account. I didn't think anything about that it was become this whole community. I was just like, I want to take like cool pictures of my cards and my Pokemon toys and stuff and post them. And it turned into something crazy beyond that I could ever have imagined, and this whole new world. So I love being creative and taking like little figures out and putting them in the wild and like photographing them as if they're out there, things like that. I just love doing that. So yeah, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So could we plug that social media handle for folks who want to follow you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Soph Pelago, and then on everything else, it's Pokemon Pelago. I have a YouTube channel and stuff like that. So yeah.
Soph Pelago's
Pelago.
Okay. What is Pelago?
So the name actually came from when I was playing Sun and Moon at the time. There's a like Pelago that you can go to and take your Pokemon there and like get jelly beans. And so I was like, oh, that's an interesting name. So it was like I was just playing it at the time that I made my username. So that's where it came from.
I love it because, again, like, with my name, Danny Cards, like, no one thinks that, we all just start with an idea of like, I want to post pictures and, do fun things. And, you're kind of stuck with it. I know there are ways to change it, and I didn't want to go through that. I do have a secondary Instagram account for this Hobbyist Thompson for the podcast. I don't even really monitor it that much. I feel bad because I keep trying to, move it forward and try to get some more traction. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not the Hobbyist Thompson thing. That really is just for like the podcast, the Rum Diary by Hunter S. Thompson, Card Diary by Hobbyist Thompson. So, but no, you, very impressive social media engagement, following, and just your backgrounds, just the love of Pokemon you have is just I love it. It's coming through to me on camera. So again, I can't wait for my kids to listen to this and kind of learn more about how it is to be a grader. I don't know, who knows, maybe they'll want to be graders when they grow up too, like I've definitely submitted Pokemon cards of theirs to grading companies, and it's like they learn, right? I try to teach them, but of course I'm not like a professional, but we just kind of, it's a bonding experience, just like, hey, I'll just be like, yeah, here's why I'm thinking maybe, like ultimately I say, hey, here's your budget, or like you can submit 3 cards, but let's talk about which 3. So I try, ultimately I do let them choose which ones, but I say, what I'm looking at with this one is, look at the back. There's a little bit of white in this corner. Do we really want to submit that? And then, so I let them do that. But, I think for me, it's a lot of it is just kind of like bonding with them. And that's why I think maybe I do want to learn more about Pokemon, because they love it so much. And, when we go to our local card shop, they're on the right hand side with the Pokemon stuff, and I'm on the left hand side with the sports stuff. But if we could do more of that together, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So yeah. So do you have like family members who collect with you, or like, I know you talk to friends on Instagram and all that, but like, do you have your local in real life community as well?
So I've actually done some openings with my mom before. Like I got her to open packs with me on my Instagram, which was really fun. And also play Pokemon Go with her too. I got her to download Pokemon Go so we could play together. But yeah, like a lot of the friends that I met through Pokemon Instagram. We've took trips together and met up in real life and spent time together in real life, and they've become my like literal best friends in virtually, but now in real life. We went to California together. We took a trip to Arizona together, and like we all opened packs together, and like it's so fun. It's so fun. So I make vlogs. Actually, I have vlogs of those on my YouTube channels, on my YouTube channel. And so yeah, like I love getting to make those connections. It's just wild how it can bring people together from all over the world. I have friends all like throughout Europe and all sorts of places just that I met online because we shared a passion and a love for Pokemon. So yeah, and there's people here too that I've met like through this job and stuff that we all have the same passion. So it's really fun to get to nerd out over stuff like that. So yeah.
That is so cool. I'm so glad that you have that. And yes, both the the card, the hobby in general, the Pokemon side and the TCG and the sports side. So there's the international aspect. I think that some of us in America tend to kind of forget, right? It's like we're the epicenter of so much, but there is so much else outside of the US where, there's a lot of collectors everywhere and just as diehard and spend just as much money and have just as much passion.
Yeah.
So
I used to live in England for 5 years. I was living in England at the time that I started collecting. So I was there for like the majority of my time getting back into Pokemon. So I have a lot of people in both places that I connected with.
that is very cool. That is very cool. So, I guess I didn't plan for this question, but like, do your friends ever, are they ever like, hey, I know you work with CGC. Can you kind of like hit me up with a discount code or hook me up or something?
I mean, occasionally people will say that to me, but of course I'm like, no, like I can't. I'm sorry. Like you have.
Yeah.
I give them the link to like the website to go through the process of how to do it. Yeah.
That is funny. So yeah, let's get into the grading. Thank you so much for kind of like sharing your background and just your love of Pokemon. So I know that this is one question I really did want to ask someone, who's been with CGC for a couple of years is, how much training was involved to become a grader?
So we actually have a classroom where we are taught by like a professional educator who teaches us like all the basics of grading and all the tools that we need and things like that. And so we go through that process, and then after that, we come out on like the floor and we start grading cards and working closely with other people who have been doing it longer, basically, and we work closely together like that, ask lots of questions. So the fact that we have the classroom, though, is like really, really helpful learning in like an actual educational setting. I think that helps set us up for some to be really great graders. And then also everyone is constantly learning as we go. There's new games being introduced all the time. So I feel like we're constantly learning, training like every single day. When I first started grading, we only did Pokemon and Magic, and now we do so many different things. So I think our team is really strong, and we have so many people that we can talk to and learn from and things like that. So I think it's not just the classroom. I mean, the classroom is an amazing foundation, but we're constantly growing and evolving as graders and people and learning new things every day.
That's so awesome because it's kind of like the fun don't stop. The learning does not stop. You just keep learning continuously, and you have a support system. You have the CGC who's providing the training, but also you're learning from your colleagues who've been there a little bit longer, and just you guys are all just kind of like educating each other. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I kind of want to be a grader now. So with like Lorcana coming out, I know I've seen things online where people were trying to pass things as authentic and they weren't, and like you all have to. It's almost, is it kind of like a cat and mouse game where you have to like really keep learning to because there are people who are unfortunately trying to kind of run scams and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean we're always trying to see if there's things that aren't authentic and then studying those. And yeah, it's a constant learning process because people are always coming up with new ways to try to like trick people or get things passed. So yeah, it's definitely a process, and we have to again, that's where we have to be very detail oriented and like really focus on what we're doing, because we want to, obviously put out the best quality work and make sure we do the best we can. So yeah, it's definitely a constant learning process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing I did want to ask, and I know it's a little bit of an uncomfortable question, but it's one that I think a lot of people, again, kind of like to dispel the myth is, oh man, these graders, they all grade each other's cards, they're all buddies, and oh, you got the president of the grading company, he grades his own cards and he gets all this advantage and favor. So I just did want to ask you, like, you have your friends who are fellow graders, but have you ever submitted your own cards for grading, and like, how does that experience look?
Yeah, so I've definitely submitted cards, but our process is very anonymous. So basically, when we bring our cards in, we'll leave them at the front with security, and then we will not see them again until we get them back already slabbed up. So we have no part in the process whatsoever. We like to have complete anonymity, just like with any other person who submits. So even though it's my cards, nobody, like, the grader is not going to know like whose cards they are still. So yeah, that's very, very important to us. And we make sure we have a procedure to follow when it comes to employee submissions like that.
That's very awesome. I'm glad that there is that safeguard, because again, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, is people just make these assumptions.
Yeah.
And thank you for that very, honest answer. So when it comes to, say, submissions that, or cards of that you have or you grade, I know I briefly kind of talked about this before I pressed record, but in the sports card world, there's like these three general eras of cards, which are vintage, modern, ultra modern. And so I was wondering, I know you don't grade sports cards, but with the cards you do grade, are there different eras? And if so, does your time or experience grading those cards, does its time change because it takes you longer for maybe a different era and things like that, like maybe it is like in the sports card world?
So yeah, when it comes to Pokemon specifically, I grade like whatever kind of era, vintage, modern, anything like that. It's not specific to, like, I only grade vintage or something like that. I know there's, with Magic, like, there's certain people that will lean towards grading vintage or whatever, but with Pokemon, I just grade everything. And yeah, it can take slightly longer to grade vintage cards, like if they're super beat up or things like that. We have to look for all the little things. Modern typically are nicer because they're new, they haven't been sitting around for 20 years. So it can take shorter amount of time for modern, but typically you can grade like pretty similarly for like all cards. It's not a huge difference.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Awesome. So is it okay if I get right into maybe like the questions for each of the classic 4 subgrade components: centering, corners, edges, surface?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? Okay. So this is kind of unique to TCG card game, trading card game cards. Yeah. So with centering, I know in the sports card world, there is more leeway for the back of the card versus the front of the card. And backs of sports cards have stats information, but for card games, you have to have like a deck of playing cards the exact same back, because you're trying to, for tournament play, you don't want people to know what card is coming up next and all that. So how much leeway do you give the back of the card versus the front of the card when it comes to centering?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. The front definitely, I think, makes more of a difference than the back, but also centering, it's just kind of, it is what it is. Like, no matter how well you preserve your card or how you don't, like, the centering is not going to change. So that, because of that, we don't go like a 1 for centering or something like that. We don't hit centering as hard because you can't control what the centering is.
Right.
So yeah, which is why it won't completely like destroy the grade if it has bad centering. Or
Yeah. And can I just say, before we go to the other 3 subgrades, I am continuously amazed and impressed by the quality of the Japanese, or even American, but like the Japanese Pokemon cards and the TCG cards, because the quality control is just stellar.
Yeah.
We have in the sports card world, we have cards that come out of $1,000 boxes where the centering is just completely can be destroyed,
Hmm.
and their print lines and everything. And here we have, I know you have full art cards where there's no borders, but even the cards that have borders, I look and it's like perfect borders every single time. And then for the borderless cards, I guess I can't tell if things are well centered, but I have no doubt that they are actually centered really well. So
Hmm.
centering and print lines, those are the manufacturers, the burdens on the manufacturers, but we as consumers, we have to bear the brunt.
Yeah.
Um, it's a risk we take, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And it is incredible. Japanese quality of Pokemon cards and other cards are just so, so good. I actually love collecting Japanese cards. And honestly, like, because it's partially because the quality is just so, so, so good. There's a lot less centering issues or print lines or any kind of defects than with English cards. Um, and I've noticed, like, even recently with the Scarlet and Violet era, like, there have been like factory issues that you pull it straight out of the pack and it has something wrong with the surface or something like that. And
Mm,
it can be, I know it can be very frustrating to people because it's like they just pulled the card and already
yeah,
it's not going to get a 10 because there's all
right.
these issues with it straight out of the pack. But I feel like with Japanese, that's like rarely an issue.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I think maybe the sports card world, we should demand more. We should demand the
Yeah,
quality.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
wild that if you get like one rare card like that's that much money and it has horrible centering, I feel like they should be more careful with the quality control
No,
with.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, again, the differences between sports cards and TCG, I Craig mentioned how you have tournament players or tournament play cards where they're actually like double sleeved, and they're sleeved upside down, meaning that the top of the card goes to the is inserted first into the sleeve. Can you confirm or deny these wild rumors?
I mean, I used to, in my own personal collection, I used to double sleeve cards because I thought it would protect them better. And I would put like the really tight, perfect fits on it. And actually, I feel like that kind of could easily damage it. I think it's safer just to have one sleeve on it because the more sleeves you're putting on it, the more chance of that it can like rub on the corners or the edges or things like that. So I think just keeping it in one sleeve is sufficient enough. Sleeve it and like put it in. If I'm a huge binder collector, so I have a lot of my cards in
Mm.
binders. But like I like card savers or things like that. But I don't think double sleeving is necessarily the way to go.
Yeah, it sounded wild when I heard it. I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Like, these are people I need to block on Instagram, I guess. But no, it's again, every community has their own set of, this is how we do things or all that. But ultimately, there's too much of that. Do it the way you want.
Yeah.
Binder is great. One sleeve, go ahead. Two sleeves sounds wild to me, but if when in Rome, if people want to do that,
Yeah.
we're not playing. Yeah, we're not playing tournaments with our sports cards. We're not playing. It's not tournament play. We're just preserving it. And so, if when in Rome, do what's the locals do. So, but that's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
When you okay, so corners. When you are grading, do you at all by chance see a particular corner more dinged than others? So when I ask that, I'm thinking like, when I put a card into a penny sleeve, I usually go with the bottom right corner into the penny sleeve, and then same thing with the top loader. I could see for myself that being a corner that I ding more than the other ones because I'm not putting it in upside down. I'm not putting it left side first. But has that ever come across your way?
Honestly, I haven't noticed like one specific corner being worse than others. Mostly I'll see the damage that I'll see from corners is more from like the cut, like the factory cut or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see maybe like the bottom corners because people bang them on the table or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
overall, I haven't noticed like a specific trend of one corner being damaged over the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're talking about card savers. Do you like it when submitters submit with like the card saver and then like a little tab, like a sticky tab on top, so you can pull the card out, or is that completely irrelevant? Does that not matter at all?
I mean, that's interesting because so I've actually I've worked through the whole process. So I started working in verification and receiving verification. So when I was doing that, it kind of helped to have a pull tab because it made it kind of quicker. But you also still have to be careful because when you're pulling it out, you have to make sure, because some people would like stick the pull tab directly onto the card or things like that. So that was not the
That's
best.
what are
But
people doing?
that happened a lot.
Oh
But
no.
it's that's fine. Like having it in a card saver with or without a pull tab is fine. What is more frustrating is if like the whole thing is like taped shut or something, and then you have to like cut open the tape. And yeah, so just in a card saver, in a sleeve, in a card saver, that's like perfect, just like that.
The stories you all must have. Oh my gosh, I bet you like the lunch break room. Can you believe this one person
I know this was
used, crazy glued their
yeah.
their card saver to preserve it. They
Yeah.
triple sleeved this Pokemon
Yeah,
card.
it's like you think you're protecting it more, but it's actually like damaging it more.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so I did ask Craig this and we had a great talk about it, but do you have a specific, if you can think to your mind's eye, you putting a Pokemon card into a penny sleeve and top letter, do you always do it one way where it's always one corner? Like, are you left-handed, right-handed? Does that matter? Like, what do you think?
Um, I'm trying to think how I do it. Yeah, I think I usually just like put it like right corner in first and then push it down. And then like I said, I keep a lot of my cards in binders. Because I have a big collection of cards that aren't necessarily like super good. Like they might be a little bit damaged, but I just like the card and the artwork and stuff. So I have a lot of those in binders. So I think I just do it from like the right corner.
It makes sense. Craig said he was left-handed, so he went bottom left corner first. I think you want the card away from your hands and you're putting it down at an angle, so it makes sense. I think a lot of people, that is what they do. If you're right-handed, you're bottom right corner first.
Yeah.
I think that just makes the most sense. So
Mhm.
I got to ask you, do you put left sock on, then left shoe on, or are you socks first, then like do you have a routine, or again, you may not even think about it. You probably thought this morning, I'm gonna just talk about Pokemon on a podcast and have some fun, but how do you put your socks and shoes on?
I I definitely put my socks on first, both my socks and then both of my shoes. But I don't know if there's a specific order. I don't think there's I don't think I have
No
a
rhyme or reason, right?
no. At least not that I can remember.
No, it's totally all right. Again, just a silly, fun question that I wanted to ask because, again, we're talking about putting our cards into sleeves and, you know, people putting on socks and shoes. Just curious how people do things. Just
Yeah,
that's
it's something we all do
um,
every single day.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes I when I can't find both shoes at the same time, I'm like, okay, just whatever shoe I first see, I got to put that one on.
Yeah,
And
do that too.
yeah, no, it's like I have two young kids. Like I'm like, where are my shoes? Like where, I have a dog and things just get moved around. So so anyway, enough about
One
my
thing,
yes.
I never wear socks that are like matching because I don't have time to try to match them. I always wear odd socks.
All right. Okay, we're getting a little bit deep here. You don't match up any of your socks after laundry.
No.
So it's all, so are they at least the same length, or are they also like, low cut, mid cut?
They're the same length.
They are
And
the same
they're
length.
all Pokemon. Like they're all like Pokemon socks.
Oh, that makes, you know what? That's adorable.
It'll be
Yeah.
like Pikachu with like an Eevee or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
see that I think that's awesome. I think that's so cool. To have two different socks like that and two different Pokemon. That I hope people listen to this and go, you know what? She initially said she doesn't match up her socks before she puts them on. That sounds wild to me, but now
It all makes sense.
that all makes sense. I think that's really cool. I definitely my kids. I don't have adult Pokemon socks for myself, but my kids have their Pokemon socks, and I'm just like, again, just different person, different collector, different. We're all different people, but I spend so much time hunting down socks to try to match up. Like I'm the opposite. I need
You're like, I
like
need them to match.
yeah, they're these. I feel like all my socks are from like Costco, and they're all Puma. Shout out to all of us dads out there who are all of our apparel is now Costco, Kirkland signature, and all that. But I gotta say, there are socks where there's just one little thing different from one sock to the other, and it's like the inseam color is gray or blue, and I'm like, I can't. It has to be the same. It's like I have to have the same pair, otherwise I just feel off. And so, but maybe I live how the when in Rome. Just maybe I should just
Absolutely.
embrace different. I should buy adult Pokemon socks. That's what I
Do
should do.
it. Do it. It'll change your life. Like they're amazing. I mean, I love everything. I have Pokemon shirts and dresses and everything Pokemon. I'm obsessed.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I should probably get some more Pokemon apparel in my closet. Maybe not the dresses. I just don't know if that's gonna if they
Fair.
make a men's size for me. But I will say that I want to get more into Pokemon again to bond with my kids because I know that they're going to, not like I only have them for a short period of time, and then they grow up, and then they
Mhm.
want to hang out with their kid with their friends, and my influence on them and just starts to slowly wane. So but yeah, no, thank you so much. Like that's that is great. That is so awesome. So we moving on to the third of the subgrades of the four subgrades.
Mhm.
So edges. Do you kind of like the corners question? Do you see any particular edge that is more affected than the others? And the reason I ask that is we know that any card, if you put into a top loader, people are pressing on that top edge.
Mhm.
Some people tap it, some people smush it, some people, well, remember that thing from the 90s, or is like bop it, skip
Oh,
it,
yeah, and I
bop
twist
it,
it.
twist it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are people doing to their cards? But yeah, do you see that?
Yeah, I feel like the tops and the bottom edges usually are worse than the sides, typically. But again, it also depends on like, with modern cards, usually it's not so much of an issue. It's mostly like older cards that we see a lot more of that kind of damage. I think I think a lot of people are pretty careful with like how they put the cards in, so it's not too there doesn't get to be too much damage that way. But yeah, like it's again, it's if there's issues, it's because of the cut or something like that, or the way that the blades slice the card or whatever. So
Mm.
generally, I don't see again a specific thing except for the maybe the tops and the bottoms a little more than the sides.
Gotcha. Yeah, because now I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about the penny sleeves top loaders, but people are again in the 90s, if they're playing Pokemon or the early 2000s, they have the binders and they're putting their cards. You can't tap a card into a binder. You do have to kind of press on the top to put it in.
Yeah.
It's not a individual top loader that you just kind of do that with.
Yeah,
So
and back in the day, I feel like people didn't really even put sleeves on. They would just put them straight into the binder. So they're a lot. I feel like people are a lot more careful now, and there's so many different
definitely.
ways of protecting the cards now that there wasn't back then. I used to make up games with my cards and like play with my dad, like whatever,
Oh,
just like throw them around. So all my cards from when I was a kid are beat up, but like I played with them a lot. And I think a lot of people did. They didn't know it was going to become some super valuable collectible. We just threw them around and played with them like kids do. So
and
yeah.
and they're kind of they were supposed to be played. It's like toys, like
They're
yeah.
yeah.
But so actually, when my kids, I take them to shows, some really good Pokemon dealers. I've learned this because at first I was like, what is this dot system and the LP, MP, HP? But uh, you know what I'm about to say. But did you want to kind of like explain to the listeners what LP, MP, HP are and all that?
Yeah, so it's like basically the scale of how the condition of the card, like near mint or light played or things like that.
Yeah.
Heavy played, kind of a standard for how we all will signify the damage on a card.
Yeah, it's like honesty, right? It's like here's
Yeah.
a person who pack pulled a card. They're being really honest with a potential buyer, saying, I played this a lot, and I want you to know that I played with it. And
Yeah.
versus, yeah, I played in one or two tournaments with this, and it's lightly played, and then medium played maybe is not as significant as lightly and heavily played. But I
Yeah.
really appreciated it. I was like, I looked at this binder, and this guy, it was like a top loader binder, right? And he was selling these cards, these single Pokemon cards, and he's like, I was like, what is this dot system and all this? And he was so nice to kind of explain it, and he's like, yeah, this is what you know we the good people in the Pokemon community expect of each other when we sell cards to each other. So again, like an industry or like a self-regulated norm that I thought was just so cool.
Yeah, and as you probably know, like we do the eBay authentication here at CGC, and I'm one of the people who does the authentication, and so that's also a huge important part of making sure that the condition matches what the person is sending. So yeah, it's definitely very important, those things, and that the person is being honest.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love the expectation of integrity within the Pokemon community. And I know people could be like, "Oh, I barely played with this card," and they actually played with it a lot. But just the
Mhm.
fact that system exists, LP, MPHP, I think is really cool in the TCG world. And again, hopefully that proliferates with these other new card games coming out, right? Like
Yeah.
Lorcana and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very cool. All right, so I did promise that I would try to get as close to 45 minutes with this. So moving on to Surface,
Mhm.
how much does one fingerprint or a post-production aftermarket uh, uh, incident or accident, how much does one fingerprint affect the surface grade? Or is it more that, it's print lines and production quality that the consumer does not control? Is that more of the issue? Like, what do you see more of?
Um, to be honest, like I don't see too many fingerprints, and if I do, they're usually like super light that we can just like brush off with a microfiber cloth. But I feel like in general, I don't see as many fingerprints as I would have thought I would have seen, like if I before. Um, but if there is like an actual like big fingerprint or something, it's usually because there's some kind of other like foreign substance that was like on their hands or something. So we'll just kind of hit it like foreign substance, but a lot of times they're just super light and they can just be like lightly brushed off. Most of the time it's more like a lot of like factory like print lines, or in the newer like V cards, they often have like a inconsistency in like the surface, like the way it was made and things like that. So yeah, it kind of depends. A lot of the fingerprints aren't really that big of a deal because they can just be easily wiped off. But I will say like specific cards do pick up fingerprints more than others. For example, I don't know if you know about the Unigaba like evolution promos that came out recently.
Sorry.
They're a type of like Japanese Pokemon card, and the whole surface is like kind of like glossy. And so it's easy to like see fingerprints on those. Those are the kinds of things that I see them on mostly. But again, like they can be easily just like they're they're not like ingrained in the surface or anything like that.
Gotcha. And you don't see like fingernail dents? I've heard that could be an issue.
Not too often, no. Occasionally, but like rarely I see those.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was thinking if people are literally putting pull tabs, adhesives on their own cards and scratches, and I mean, I thought surface might be more of an issue, but this is why I have Grader on, to kind of
Yeah.
showing from your vantage point what you're seeing, what you're not.
When cards are damaged, like there can be like a lot of damage, like creases and things like that, and
Yeah.
we do see that a lot more with older cards. Like obviously they're a lot older, they've been around a lot longer, but yeah, like creases are obviously very bad, and that happens, and we do see a lot of that on people, just and because people send in cards maybe that they just love, they've had since their childhood. Like I've done that before. I've submit cards that they're not in good condition, but I just like want to preserve them because I love them so much, you know?
Mhm.
So we do see issues. It's just like, yeah, it's a lot more in vintage cards than the modern ones.
And so there is that aspect, right? I mean, there's so much talk about grading with regards to grade and flip and investing in the money side of it, but it kind of comes down to, again, I don't want to sound too idealistic or romantic, but there is the element of people grading to preserve because they just want their cards in a really nice looking slab and have a numerical grade that represents their current ability to sleeve cards or their past ability, their past self. It's almost like getting a grade of, you know, yourself as a kid. Like, how well did you preserve your cards as a kid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's it's a mixture of both. You know, a lot of people do submit a lot of cards to then sell, but there are definitely people who submit like their personal collections that they love or their childhood collections. And even, you know, even if you get like, I submitted one and I got like a 5 or something like that. It was like one of my favorite cards from when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And I didn't care what grade it got. Like I just wanted it now like preserved forever, and like I can, you know, put it on my shelf or whatever and be like, oh, like I played with this card when I was a kid. Like there's all these
Mhm.
memories associated with it, and it just is very meaningful to me. And like those kinds of things, I think are more common than you would think. Like a lot of people think it's just, you know, people flipping cards, but no, like there's a lot of people who genuinely just like love these cards in their collections and like want to like keep them preserved forever. So yeah.
That is awesome. And man, I knew I was gonna go over time, but I do have to ask you, like, when it comes to tools of the trade, do you have like could you share like what we at home, right? The consumer, we have like magnifying glasses, we have loops, we have, some of us have like the like rulers or centering tools and things like that. But like, do you know how strong of magnification your loop is and like numerically and things like that, or is that not allowed to be shared? I don't know.
We have loops. I mean, we have loops that are different magnifications. Like
Mm,
they're not all the same necessarily, but yeah, we have loops and like rulers and UV lights and different lights and things like that. We have, you know, our trays that we keep the cards in to make sure they're not like flying all over the place. They
mm,
stay in like a spot. And yeah, I think we use like similar tools to what you were saying. There's certain machines that we have like to help us determine like authenticities and things like that. But yeah, like day to day things, rulers and lights and loops and our eyeballs.
and very important, your eyeballs. And I gotta say, I promise I am not gonna ask about the machines because we don't want to. That's definitely something that should be kept secret to you all because that's how you get That's how you're ahead of these people who are doing some unsavory things. So, but I think it's really cool that you answered in that way of like you have different loops, different lights. Again, you're a professional. It's not like one hammer can fix everything unless you're Thor. But you have these different tools and different things for depending on the situation and circumstances. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, there's
So
different cards and things that we look at. And yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. I feel like I could go on forever, but I know that I promised that I would keep this as close to 45 minutes as possible. Sophia, I think it just means I have to have you on in the future. And for people who think that I didn't ask you all the questions I should have asked or I wasn't hard enough or whatever, I gotta say, your team was so nice to get you on and to have a face now for a grader in CGC. I think it's fantastic, and I think people should just create their own podcast and have you on and ask questions to you if they want. Like I am just doing this to be someone who's curious about it and wants to learn. And what's great about recording this is I get to do it and be the first person to hear this, interview because I
Yeah.
got to record it. So you were just fantastic. This was so
Aw,
fun.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful.
Yeah. So I know you got to get back to the grading floor.
Yeah.
Just have a wonderful day. You are just so excellent, and I hope that people really enjoyed this episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.